The pills were almost done. Kathy gritted her teeth. Obviously, it was consuming the last bit of her strength.
"One step, only one step away,"
Noah yelled. As level 2 pills, youth pills were one of the elixir pills that were the easiest to make. As long as the elixir master balanced the 5 elemental essences, extracted the effects of the supplementary materials, and activated the essence in the main ingredients, it would be a success. Although Noah had not participated in the beginning part of the process, he judged from the aroma floating from the furnace that the pills still needed some time before they were done. While Kathy used the last bit of her strength, Susan and Jacob were both looking at her anxiously. Susan was anxious because she was afraid that Kathy would fail to make the pills at the last moment. However, Jacob was concerned that the process would put too much pressure on Kathy. Noah sniffed loudly and said abruptly,
"No, one herb is missing."
While everyone else was watching the furnace without blinking, the boy thought for a few seconds.
"Yes, the mixture is missing a unicorn lotus."
He rummaged in his sleeves and drew out a black stick that looked like a sugar cane before walking to Kathy. "Little master, please don't mess around." Dracon tried to stop him. Susan was going to walk over and block him, but Elder Kayla stopped her.
"You need this."
With one hand, Noah lifted the furnace lid. The life notes and death notes were scattered, and Kathy, who was controlling the notes with her mind and spirit, spat out a mouthful of blood. Noah ignored it and tossed out a treasure to push down the essences that were surging out of the furnace before tossing the unicorn lotus into the furnace.
"What a pity. With the opening of the furnace before completing the process, half of the essences are gone."
Noah sighed while shaking his head. Hearing his words, Susan, who had high hopes for the youth pills, almost spat out a mouthful of blood too. "Kathy!" Jacob hurried over to help Kathy to stand up, but he was again pushed away by the remaining power of the life-death note.
"I'm fine."
Pale-faced, Kathy stood up. "This kid is too reckless." Jacob clenched his fists and began to walk to Noah. Despite Noah's high position, Jacob found it hard to control his anger toward this kid. He had only walked forward for half a step before Kathy grabbed his sleeve. "He did it for my sake. He knew that I couldn't make it and walked up to continue the process for me." Hearing her words, Jacob was surprised. He stared at her and asked, "Why did you still want to go on when you know you couldn't make it?" Kathy lowered her head and said in a low voice, "I didn't want to disappoint Susan." Jacob was both angry and exasperated. If Noah didn't offer his help, Kathy might have ended up worse than spitting blood. Noah sat down cross-legged in front of the furnace and took Kathy's place. He reached out and patted Snowflake's neck.
"More fire. I'll feed you great pills later."
Snowflake seemed to have understood his words. Sticking out its tongue, it instantly spat out stronger flames. Noah chanted spells, and the furnace began to turn slowly. His elixir-making techniques were different from Kathy's. If Kathy's method was like stir-frying, then his method was like stewing. The stir-frying depended on the skills of the hands, while stewing depended on the control of the fires.
"Lower! Lower!"
The little boy yelled at Snowflake. Snowflake took a breath, and its true fire got less intense. The aroma floating from the furnace was even more intense. Elder Kayla placed her hands on Kathy's shoulders and began to help her settle down the surging blood in her body.
"It's so slow."
Bored, Sophie blurted out. Obviously, Noah's method was not as eye-catching as Kathy's. It was as boring as watching a sweet potato being baked.
"Can we rush the elixir-making process?"
The boy turned his head and gave her a fierce stare.
"He's scary."
Sophie mumbled before hiding behind Jacob. She knew she couldn't afford to mess with Noah. She just hadn't expected that his hearing would be so acute. After more than 1 hour, Snowflake looked fatigued. Just then, Noah said casually, "Time to open the lid." With his right hand, he lifted the lid. An intense aroma instantly filled the whole room. Noah took out a bottle and tossed it up. Hovering in the air above the furnace, the bottle sucked up the pills one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Susan counted and got excited when she got to 4. She thought that the ingredients were enough to make at most 3 youth pills. Since Kathy was trying her hand at elixir making for the first time, she expected less than 3. Besides, with the interruption of Noah during the process, some of the nature essences had been lost. It would be fortunate if they could get 1 pill. To her surprise, they had made 4 pills, 1 more than her highest expectation. Noah beckoned, and the bottle returned to his hand. He shook the bottle and heard the crisp sound of the pills rolling around. With a playful smile, he tossed the bottle at Kathy. Kathy caught it and was at a loss for what to do next. "I just wanted to give you a hand. You must have been doing this for 1 day and 1 night." Noah smiled haughtily and said, "No, before you arrived, we had been here for less than 1 hour." Sophie interrupted. One hour?" Noah's proud face turned stiff. It would take him at least 1 day and 1 night at the furnace to make such level 2 pills. However, this Chi Refinement Realm cultivator only used 1 hour to finish the majority of the process? What strange elixir-making technique is this? While Noah froze with astonishment, Snowflake stood up lazily. It leaned toward him with its red tongue hanging out, obviously asking for its reward. Here. Noah took out a gray bottle and poured out more than 10 pills before tossing them at Snowflake. Joyously, Snowflake stuck out its tongue, licked onto all of them, and swallowed. After that, it trotted around Noah with affection. In Noah's hidden space, which was his warehouse, there were at least hundreds of bottles of such low-level pills. If he liked, he could make 100 more low-level pills in just 3 days and 3 nights. The so-called elixir pills were cheaper than beans to him. What he cared about now was that a weak cultivator could compress the 24-hour process into 2 hours. She was a living treasure who could make elixirs all the time. "Hey, teach me your elixir-making techniques." Ignoring Snowflake's antics, Noah walked toward Kathy and said. Kathy looked at him in a daze, not understanding his words. "Teach me your elixir-making techniques," Noah repeated. Frightened, Kathy didn't know how to answer him. How can she teach you her technique so casually? Jacob stood between them and said to the boy, "I just want to learn them. I won't tell anyone else." Noah continued to stare at Kathy. He hated when his master made him learn elixir-making techniques. Although he was gifted and smart, and could even make level 9 immortal pills, it usually took him days to do it. For those level 9 immortal pills, he had to spend more than 1 month watching the furnace without rest. That was why he would rather make treasures instead of elixirs. It took him at most 3 days and 3 nights to make a treasure, and the process mainly involved his brain, since he needed to arrange the different array formations. Compared to that, elixir making was purely physical labor to him. If he could learn Kathy's techniques... "My master told me that I couldn't teach anyone these techniques." Kathy calmed down and told him. "Who's your master? Tell him or her to see me in the Dragon Palace," Noah said immediately. "My master," Kathy said after half a second of hesitation, "she doesn't see people." "I don't think there are people I can't see in the world," Noah grew arrogant.
Okay, I'll go and see her then. I'll see if she will teach me or not.
Then he waved his hand at Kathy.
Okay, all of you get out. I'm going to make treasures. I'll go find you later.
Kathy looked at this eccentric boy in exasperation. Let's get out of here. Dracon led the group out of the room.
Snow Lion, you stay,
Noah said abruptly.